Hi, we are coming down to the end of Block 5, Topic 1, and I hope that you are about to finish Block 5, Topic 1 on Math 180. In our last lesson, we went over how to solve problems with fractions. We did the lesson. There was a quizzes for you to practice, and now I want to go over that with you to make sure that you understand. In our lessons after this, we'll do some review, and then I'd like to make a quiz to see how you're doing with these skills. Today, I want you to watch this video and contact me if you have any questions. We can set up a WebEx. We can email back and forth, whatever you need in order to be successful. And then spend 20 to 30 minutes on Math 180, just doing what you normally do. I've been keeping track and watching how people are progressing. First, I want to give some shout outs to those of you that have been working. Got quite a list there of folks that I've seen do something on Math 180 within the last week. There are a couple of you, and you know who you are. You've only worked on Math 180 1 minute, but you at least did do something. The number ones next to names means that those people completed one lesson this week. I could color in one more thing on my chart, so I was really glad to see that. So lots of you are doing some on Math 180, and that's amazing. You can see quite a few less actually trying the skill and doing it on quizzes. Hey, give me some feedback. If I'm not giving you enough time with the quizzes, if you'd rather do Kahoots, let me know. I just want to see how you're doing with the skills. And we're doing okay. We're not doing great. So that's why I feel like it's necessary to go back over these and talk you through how the skills. So this was one of the first questions, or one of the questions on the quizzes, to put these fractions in order. And the skills that we've been working with were taking fractions, comparing them to half, comparing them to 1, or using the common numerator, common denominator here. So when I look at 3/5, I know that 1/2, when we talk about fifths, is 2.5. So 3/5 is just a wee bit bigger than 1/2. 1/5, we've got a common numerator here between 1/2 and 1/5, and I know that 1/5 is a smaller piece, because if I take something and cut it into 5 pieces instead of 2, it's littler. And then I've got 1/6, which is another common numerator. A 1/6 piece would be smaller than a 1/5 piece. Now here's what you have to be careful of. This says greatest to least, and even when I did the quizzes, I missed these because I didn't read carefully. Oh, that's pretty. How about that? The biggest one is 3/5, then 1/5, and then 1/6. So that red one here would have been the correct answer. Moving on to the next one. Jessica hiked 7/10 of a trail in an hour. Kim hiked 3/6 of a trail in an hour. Who hiked more? So I know that 5/10 is the same as a half. 7/10 is more than 5/10. So 7/10 has to go up here. I know that 3/6 is exactly half. So 3/6 is exactly here at the half. So 3/6 is not greater than 7/10. It's not equal to 7/10, but 7/10 is greater than 3/6. So this would be the correct answer. Hunter finished 3/8 of his homework before supper. Macy finished 2/3 of her homework before supper. Which statement correctly compares the fractions? I know that 4 is half of 8, so 4/8 is the same as half. 3/8 is less than half. I know that 1.5 is half of 3. 2 is more than that, so 2/3 is a little bit more than a half. So is 2/3 less than 3/8? Nope. Is 3/8 equal to 2/3? Nope. Is 3/8 greater than 2/3? Nope. Is 3/8 less than 2/3? That would be the correct answer. Paige rode her bike 4/6 of a mile. Megan rode her bike 1/3 of a mile. Which statement is true? Well, 3/6 is a half. So 4/6 is more than a half. And 1/3 is less than a half, because if we compare thirds and halves, thirds are smaller pieces. So here's 1/3. So is 1/3 greater than 4/6? Don't think so. Is 4/6 equal to 1/3? Not at all. Is 4/6 less than 1/3? Nope. Or is 4/6 greater than 1/3? What is it with all of these right ones being on the red? Huh. I don't know. That's weird. All right. Susan ran 3/4 of a mile. Jack ran 1/2 of a mile. And Tom ran 2/3 of a mile. Who ran the furthest? So we've got Jack here. We've got 1/2. If we think about fourths, 2/4 is a half. So Sam going 3/4 is more than a half. And then we've got 2/3. Now here's where we've got to come down and think about it. Between 2/3 and 3/4, which is bigger or smaller? Thinking about this, you know that each one of these is missing one piece from getting to a whole. Okay? 2/3 is missing one bigger piece. Then the fourths would be missing one smaller piece to make 1/4. So 3/4 is a shorter distance away from one whole, making it a little bit bigger than 2/3. So who went the farthest? Whoever went 3/4 of a mile, and 3/4 of a mile goes for Sam. That one was hard. And in the amount of time you're given, it could have been really hard to give you time to think it through. So give me some feedback about some of the things I'm assigning so I know how to adjust them. Now this is a question that actually came out of your Math 180 book. A doctor measures a baby's weight gain each month. The baby gains 6/5 of a pound, 7/10 of a pound, 1/4 of a pound, 9/10 of a pound. Put the amounts in order from least to greatest. So I want to go to this first one, 6/5. When the numerator is larger than the denominator, we know that that's more than 1. So that one goes up there. 7/10. 5/10 is a half. So 7/10 is going to be greater than a half. 1/4 would be less than a half, because when we cut 1/4 up into, well, we can just do 2/4 is a half. So 1/4 has to be smaller. And then we're comparing 9/10, which we know is more than half, and 7/10. Because the denominators are the same, 9/10 would be greater than 7/10. The directions say least to greatest. I got to start with 1/4. Both of these do, so this gold one can't be right. Then I've got to go to 7/10, which is the blue one. So the blue one is the correct answer. Order these from least to greatest. Well, we've got a half, so here's a half. 2/6. Let's see. We know 3/6 is the same as a half, so 2/6 must be smaller. And 2/3, 1.5 is half of 3, so 2/3 is more. Notice the directions, greatest to least. So we're looking for something that starts with 2/3. Got to be one of these two. Then a half. And then, oh, look at that. Both of those are right. Huh. Didn't even say select all that apply. I did not write that question. I don't think. Huh. No good. It's got 2 right answers. Let's take a look at the next one. Order least to greatest. All right. 4/8 is a half. So 3/8 is less than half. 2/4 is exactly half. So 2/4 would go here. And 4/6, 3/6 is half. So 4/6 is greater than that. We're going from least to greatest. So we got to start with 3/8, move on to 2. Both of these are right. Huh. Then I made a mistake and they gave me this as a bonus one. Oh, I guess it gives me a chance to go back and check it. 3/6 is exactly half. 7/10 is more. So 7/10 has to be greater than 3/6. All right, let's try the next one. Uh-oh, my gizmo here's in the way. Move me up here out of the way. Got 1/3, 3/5, and 2/4. And it looks like my screen's not big enough. So if we start with 1/3, we know that 1/3 has to be less than a half, because if we take one whole and cut it into 3 parts, those parts would be smaller than if we cut it into 2. A half of 5 is 2.5. So 3 is more than half. And 2/4 is exactly half. So if we get them in order, I would say least to greatest. The directions are bad here. I've got 1/3 to start with, so those can't be it. I've got 2/4 in the middle, that can't be it. And then 3/5 is the largest. What does equivalent mean? So that was a vocabulary word we had, so when that showed up, I just thought that was a good question to put in here. Equivalent means equal. And you can see that the first part, equiv, even looks like equal. EMTs record the distance traveled for each incident. The distances are 2/10 of a mile, 5/6 of a mile, 5/4 of a mile, 5/8 of a mile, and 2/5 of a mile. Put the amounts in order from least to greatest. This was another one that came straight out of your book. So when we talk about tenths, 5/10 is a half, so 2/10 is less. When I talk about sixth, 3/6 is half, so 5/6 is more than half. 5/4, I've got a numerator that's larger than the denominator, so 5/4 is more than 1. Now I've got 5/8. 4/8 equals a half, so 5/8 is more than half. So now we've got to think about 5/6 and 5/8. So thinking about those two, we've got to think about the size of the piece. If I took a cake and I cut it into 6 pieces, if I took a cake and I cut it into 8 pieces, these 5/6 would be bigger, would be more cake than 5 smaller pieces. So 5/8 would come between a half and 5/6. And then we've got 2/5. We've done half of 5 before, which is 2.5. So 2/5 is less than that. It would fall right into here because it's just barely less than half. But we also have common numerators with the 2/10 and the 2/5. So we think about the tenths being very small pieces and the fifths being bigger pieces. So to get these in order from least to greatest, we got to start with 2/10. The only one that starts with 2/10 is this one. 2/10, 2/5, 5/8, 5/6, and 5/4. Anna measures the amount of baby formula a baby drinks each hour. The amounts are 5/16 of an ounce, 1 15/16 ounce, 1 3/4 ounce, 2 1/8 ounce, and 13/16 of an ounce. I'm trying to get myself here out of the way. Okay, so let's start with 5/16. 8/16 is half. So 5/16 has to be less than half. 1 5/16 is going to come somewhere between 1 and 2. If 8/16 is half, 15/16 is more than that. 15/16 is just one little 16th piece away from 2. So this would be 1 15/16. 1 3/4. All right. So 1 3/4 is 1/4 away from having 2. A fourth is a larger piece. So 1 3/4 is not quite as big as 1 15/16. 1 15/16 is one of those little purple pieces away from 2. And 1 3/4 is one of those 1/4 pieces away from 2. So it's smaller than 1 15/16. 2 1/8's got to be up here above 2. Make a little mark here, dear. Thank you. Oh, look, nothing just like being at school.